People who were traumatized as kids often follow a trajectory. First, where nothing they do to make their lives happy works. You might first blame yourself, or try to be good, or try to be accomplished, or try to escape, leave your family, go across the world. But when your problems are still right there with you, there comes a time, often around late 20s or early 30s, I've noticed, when you might begin to ask the most powerful question a person with childhood PTSD can ask. How do I heal? If you're lucky, when you reach that potent place in your personal development, you'll be met with more than stock answers by people who don't actually know anything about healing trauma. You'll meet people who have been through struggles just like yours and have made a transformation. And here on this channel, you'll meet quite a few of us. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Emily. She is right there at the doorway where her healing can begin, and she writes, "Dear Anna, I think I've been yearning for healing since I was young, but until now, I'm taking the steps to heal." So I've got my fairy pencil, and I'll be circling things that I want to come back to after I read through. I'm just going to read through the whole thing so we get a feel for it, and then I'll comment on things I circled. I think I can help. Okay. I grew up with a narcissistic alcoholic dad who cheated on my mom during their whole marriage. I have a vivid memory of my mom driving around town trying to find my dad, and when we found him, he was in a car with another woman, and all he did was laugh at my mom and drive away. It's a memory I have never forgotten, and I've not forgiven my dad for the pain he caused my mom. I can still see my mom crying and hugging my aunt. My mom used to beat me when I was young, but she stopped when I got older. I think she realized that she was following in her dad's footsteps, who used to beat her when she was young as well. She has apologized for the pain she caused me during that time, and I forgave her. I know my mom was hurting from her childhood trauma and the pain my dad caused with his cheating. I've always been protective of my mom. Maybe that's significant. When my siblings and I were young, we moved to another country. In this new country, the issues in the family took a more covert form. To a certain extent, I thought this was a good thing because my siblings did not grow up seeing such overt drama play out like I did. However, the issues became more obvious later in life, and my siblings were shocked and extremely hurt to find out that my dad was cheating on my mom again. During this time, my mom started wanting to take her own life, and I put everything in my life on pause to be there for her. Sadly, during this time, my sister went through her own set of traumas and developed an alcohol problem, and we had to go through that pain as well. I was there for both of them. However, if I have to be honest with myself, I think I put everything on pause to help them so I could have an excuse to be covertly avoidant about my own healing. Emily's using a term there that I invented, covert avoidance, to talk about the way that we sometimes can go through all the motions of showing up for life, having a job, going to school, being charming at parties, but never really being present for people. And it has signs like maybe you cancel appointments very frequently, or you stay in small talk, avoid situations where you might have to talk about something more real. Okay. So Emily says, I became a hermit during college and most of my 20s. I now realize I did it because I was scared to let men into my life. I was afraid to end up with someone like my dad, so I just shut myself off from romantic relationships. Also, I was abused by my uncle when I was younger, and now I know that I gained weight so it would protect me from assault and stop men from liking me in a romantic way. Okay, I'm circling that. In my mid to late 20s, I started yearning for a partner. During this time, I met someone, let's call him A. He was also narcissistic like my dad. I even found him talking to other women, but I felt that he was worse because he was extremely abusive, especially when drunk, which was every day. I always felt like I was walking on eggshells with him. It was horrible being with him. I stayed in the trauma-bonded relationship for a year, and the whole time I spent ruminating on our relationship because I knew I was in a cycle of abuse. I finally left after 1 year of being with him, and I'm thankful that I did. After a few months, I got a job and I met someone else. Let's call him Jay. When I got in a relationship with Jay, I noticed he was the light version of A. He had narcissistic tendencies, substance abuse issues, and I found a dating app on his phone while we were together. The one good thing about Jay was that he was never aggressive toward me, but sometimes he could be unkind. We recently broke up, and it has been hard on me because we work together. I still miss him and want to be with him, but I know that I have to be alone and start my healing journey. I want to be the person I was before all the trauma. I remember being a happy, friendly child who was very outgoing, but all that's left is a shadow of my former self. I'm writing to you because I would love advice on how I can start my healing process. I have some knowledge on how to heal, but I just don't know how to apply it in real life. Sometimes I feel like it's too late because I'm about to be 30, but I can't spend the rest of my life suffering anymore. I want to break the generational curse of my family. I want to be in a loving, healthy relationship. I want to be healthy both physically and mentally. I want to be whole again. Thank you for everything, Emily. All right, Emily, I think I can help. So let's see what you said. I'm going to go through what you told me and see if I can help. All right. I love that you said you've been yearning for healing since you were young. And that's beautiful. But until now, you haven't been taking the steps. So that's what I want to talk about, is how the pain sometimes gets so hopeless that you just realize, I'm going to have to take some steps. And I relate to that, and I was about the age you are now when that happened for me. I was kind of going on the assumption that I was intelligent, I should be able to work things out if I could just meet the right guy, if I just had a little more money, that I could change the problem. But the problem of my CPTSD, which of course back then, there was no word for it. I didn't know it was wrong. I didn't know. I just thought I struggled and I was embarrassed and ashamed about it. But that problem kind of overwhelmed all other progress in my life and was causing my life to go down, not up, like normally would be the case for a 30-year-old. Okay, so your mom was violent and she apologized for that pain that she caused. Wow, that doesn't happen very often, so good. She was hurting from her childhood trauma and the pain of your dad's cheating. So yeah, your dad was a cheater. It seems like that's a theme sometimes, especially when relationship problems show up. When your siblings were little, you moved to another country. That's hard. That's kind of a trauma, is being a new person in a strange land. And in the new country, the issues in the family took a more covert form. Okay, to a certain extent, you thought this was a good thing because the siblings were not seeing so much drama. Yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, covert problems, like shush problems, are not good, but it is better than overt violence and abuse, physically on that level. So I hear you. But your mom got really depressed and she didn't want to be on earth anymore. She stayed. Whew. But your sister got very traumatized and she got into alcoholism. So it doesn't surprise me. In a situation where the parents are at such odds and in such a desperate condition in their own emotional and spiritual health, the kids are going to act out somehow, right? And so you became the caretaker. You took care of your mom, then you took care of your sister. And when you say, when I'm honest, I think I did it so that I would have an excuse to avoid everything. And yeah, that's a lot what that is, that caretaking of other people, fixing them. Some people have told me there are fight, flight, freeze. Those are the three commonly understood trauma reactions. And then Pete Walker added fawn, be like me. Somebody else told me about one, fix, the 5 Fs. Fix people. So that's what you were doing. You were trying to help them and heal them. It's all a trauma reaction. And yeah, it takes you out of your own pain. It takes you out of your own responsibility to get your life together. And man, you grew up in this house. There's a lot of getting together to do. All that like programming and pain and like just lack of knowledge about how you do things. I know. That's what it's like. So you became a hermit during college. That is a very sane way. Not sane. Well, it's sane. It's logical. It's logical to be a hermit when being around people is so triggering. You don't have any alternative, but it's not healthy. So most of your 20s, you now realize you were doing that because you were scared to let men into your life. So people are too triggering. So yes, and you say, I was afraid to end up with someone like my dad, so I just shut myself out of romantic relationships. I'm just curious if you were consciously afraid of somebody like your dad, or if that is a psychologization. It was suggested to me a lot of stuff like that. Like when I struggle with weight, I was told it was about, trying to avoid, romance and sex and men. But for me, actually, I now believe it was a trauma-induced endocrine disruption. And I was really never avoiding it. I was always pretty much like hoping I would meet the one. I'll say that. So that may be your insight. I trust you, but I just there's a question for you. Is that really true? Because they also said you thought the weight would protect you from sexual assault and stop men from liking you in a romantic way. Yeah, that is often the assumption of professionals who don't have CPTSD, is that we do these things to avoid. Or likewise, I used to smoke cigarettes and they said, oh, you have a death wish. I didn't have a death wish. I smoked because nicotine and smoking can be it's like a really crude way to self-regulate. That's why. It's all I had at the time. I was able to stop a few years into using my daily practice techniques, which are a healthy and sustainable way to self-regulate. I teach those to everybody. Thousands of people have taken it. You can too. It's down in the description section below if you want to try it. It takes less than an hour to learn it. Then you said you started yearning for a partner in your late 20s, and during that time you met someone. He was also narcissistic like my dad. I even found him talking to other women, but I felt that he was worse because he was extremely abusive, especially when drunk, which was every day. So narcissistic, I get that your dad had these terrible traits. I'm not positive I know what you mean by narcissism, because people just use it in such a general way nowadays. But I get what you mean about being drunk all the time and abusive while drunk. That's a very serious thing for a partner to have. And it just says a lot about where you've come from and how your trauma has manifested in your relationships. And boy, you're not alone. It happens. And I'm so glad you're healing, because it's a terrible way to spend your life. And so many people who went through what we went through get stuck there. And it can be so demoralizing. It can weaken you so much that you can never really pull out of that pattern. The relationships will usually end because the person gets rid of you or dies, but the pattern continues. So I'm so proud of you that you're here. You're writing to me. I know people tell me how scary that is. Good job. So you were always walking on eggshells with him. It was horrible being with him. And you stayed for a year, and the whole time you were ruminating because you knew you were doing the cycle of abuse, and then you left. And then you got a job and you met someone else, and he was kind of the same except not violent, so it seemed like a step up. And I will grant you that. Sometimes we go on a ladder of relationships from here to here. There is legitimacy to what you're saying, but of course, people who are unkind are not great. I know I have to be alone to start my healing journey. That sounds very sensible to me. If your trauma symptoms are showing up around romantic relationships, they are so debilitating. And also, when you meet somebody, it'll tend to be somebody who you are attracted to each other because you kind of have matching, complementary or similar trauma wounds. And so it just ends up being the same old thing. And sadly, it was my experience before I recovered that the crappy quality of the relationship would get progressively worse in each subsequent relationship. It's progressive, You went the other direction, and now you've stopped. Yeah, you're in a power position, a tender position. This is good. I want to be the person I was before all my trauma. And I really circled that. That's the thing that made me want to read your letter. I want to be the person I was before all my trauma. And I have a complicated answer about that, because I do think healing trauma, what really ultimately happens is we become our true, real selves. And that true, real self shows up pretty well in children, right? And then it gets all damaged and we get something back. But what I wanted to say is that living through the trauma, it does get woven into who we are. And so much of what's important crucial in the way we heal is that we can weave in the fact of what happened to us without having it be a wound, a gaping wound, a set of shackles on our ankles. We just cannot navigate, can't move forward. We can't see that there's a way that the past trauma, and in any way that I can, perhaps I can be an example of this. That I had trauma. You wouldn't be watching this if you didn't think that I understood and related, right? I had that trauma, and it is woven into who I am now. And in a hypothetical reality where the person I was when I was, 2, well, I don't know, the trauma began for me when I was 1 month old. That's the first time my mom abandoned the family. So there really is scarcely a person there who ever didn't experience trauma. I think that was pretty hard for me. I have no memory, of course. It's hard for everybody in the family. So she'd come and go. So there was always this drama going on. But I, like you, I have a sense of myself as a cheerful, optimistic, capable kid. I like who I was. later I didn't like who I was, and it was such a stark difference. And recovering from trauma, I have felt that vibe, that energy of my true original being that I remember myself being like. But I was a kid with very little experience. And nobody gets through this ride of life, without some hard things. And if we're good at this, if we have the strength, we weave it into who we are. And what those old suffering experiences amount to is a way that we can understand other people. It's a way that we can empathize and understand and gain wisdom. They're really like this idea of like a person is entitled to have never had anything bad happen to them. I don't want to say no, everybody deserves something bad, but it is the nature of life. And I think sometimes part of our objection to this whole business of having CPTSD, it's not a very good objection of like, I deserved better. And it's like, yes, we can say that. Every person deserves love and structure and to be raised properly. But so many people don't get it that the reality is that everybody is walking around with some wounds, some of us more than others. And personally, the people who have been through it and come through the other side are the most fascinating. They have the most interesting, mature, they have gravitas for me. I want to hear what they have to say. I'm very interested in their story and their mentorship. That's why I do what I do. I love the people who have CPTSD. I love using my experience to maybe show the way to others, shine a flashlight on a path I've already walked for others. That's very meaningful to me. So in that way, what I've gone through, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I kind of love what I've done with it, and I love who I've become. I have some consequences of the traumas I've been through. It's really done a number on certain aspects of my health and my finances and my relationships with people who I might otherwise still have in my life. But it's also brought you into my life. And there's no one I'd rather be with than people like you, Emily, who are going through this, who have been through it, who are healing in front of my very eyes. So I think there's a way to accept who you are while, yes, animating that part in you. It's not gone. It's not who you were. It's who you are with a bunch of like trauma on top of it. And so, in my courses and coaching programs, you'll hear me say this all the time. We heal not just to feel better, though we must feel better, and we actually need to have a way to feel better and get relief like right now, like right away. That's the techniques I teach are meant to be like, carried with you. You have pen and paper all the time, so no matter where you are, you can get that relief that's needed. You can't wait, always for a week away to talk to a professional. Professionals are great, but then you need the tools at your disposal. So you asked how to start. So that's what I say is, it's not just so you can feel better. It's you feel better and then you can become your real self, and that's not the end of the game either. The end result that we're seeking here is to come to fruition so that we are bringing our gifts to bear in the world. I really, really believe each person, including you, Emily, you are meant to bring something to this world. And the way your trauma has kind of squashed it down and stifled it out of you, and so many people here, it's a tragedy not just for you, but for all of us. Like the world suffers for lack of all the people and the gifts that they have to bring. Gifts are collaborative. They're unique for the individual. But one thing I want to tell you about them, a sign of them is, like everybody has talents, but your unique special thing, the sign of it is that people tell you over and over again that something that you did was helpful to them. And that's how I ended up doing Crappy Childhood Fairy. Somebody was sort of trying to help me figure out what mine might be. And I said, well, when I tell my story, people really get up on the edge of their seat, and many of them will tell me afterwards that it really helped them. And so I was encouraged, like, do that more. So I started the blog, that turned into the YouTube channel. Now it's like courses and coaching. And I just, all day long, I get these incredible messages and letters and love and gratitude and a little bit of hate, right? It's part of being online. But I am so rewarded by stepping into who I really am. And then it sort of empowers me to become who I am. I want that for you. I want that for every person here. Every person here, that's what you deserve. And that's what we deserve, is to have you like fully in your own being, bringing what you bring to this world. Oh, I love watching that. I love like being associated with you while you do that. I love witnessing it. This is such a happy thing, such a wonderful thing. So becoming yourself, keeping that in mind, it might help you. It might seem daunting, but it might also put into perspective, because when you say, I know some things about healing, but I don't know how to actually do them. So I tell people how to do those things. It's hard to like summarize it. Anybody who wants can take my courses. They're always down in the description section below. I've done my best to lay it all out. You can, learn it there through videos and worksheets. And then we have coaching. My team will like stay with you for a few weeks in a group and show you how to do things. That's all good. Oh, and we have a membership program, which I think is probably the easiest way to come in and have some community. But however you do it, Emily, whether it's through here or through therapy, or I'm going to put in a huge plug here for Al-Anon. Al-Anon saved my butt. It's free. You can put a couple dollars in the basket if you want. You don't have to. It's free. It's full of wisdom. It's full of people just like you who are going through similar things and working on it. And some of them have got the flashlight to show you the path that they've been walking. And that's what a sponsor is there. The alcoholism that you have here, you will find a lot of relatedness there with people who do know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. That's where I got help for that. I learned so much of how to do life there. So you have that. The thing about trauma is it destroys people's finances so much of the time in so many cases that therapy cannot always be an option, right? Al-Anon, free Happy Childhood Fairy videos and all the great YouTubers out there who create stuff for us. And we have free Zoom calls on my channel, and then we have sort of low-cost, medium-cost programs you can come into. It's fabulous. We have this like secret Facebook group that's for the people in the membership program. And all day long, they're like supporting each other and talking. I go in there and I'm like, whoa, these people are blowing me away. And a whole bunch of them have learned the techniques so well that they host peer-led daily practice calls, multiple times a day. There's ones in different countries. You don't have to be in different countries because it's on Zoom. So you could have one in Germany and you're in the US and you can jump on their call. But what's nice about the geographic spread is that time zone wise, every day there's probably a peer-led daily practice call you can get in on. And you can meet friends, you can learn our techniques, you just can get support. It's two things. You need a way to stay honest, and you need support from people who understand what it's like to have CPTSD and with whom you're in alignment about what to do about it. Okay? Those are the two things to do. So because being a hermit in the past was sort of your go-to protection, you might find it a little hard. So put your toe in. Put your toe in. Go to one Al-Anon meeting. If you have the money, go to one therapy appointment. And I know you're watching videos, but maybe come to my free daily practice course down there. It's on the free tools page in the description section. And then if you sign up for that, you get invited to, every 2 weeks, I do a free call where we use the techniques together and I take questions. I'm usually there for like 2 hours. I love the calls so much I can hardly hang up. It's a beautiful thing. Come join us. Anybody here can. If you want to learn the techniques and practice them together and ask questions, we have it for you. And it's free. So with that, I hope that gets you started on the way. I think in the comments, a lot of people, I hope they will chime in too. How did you get started? How did you get the ball rolling? What was the first thing you did? What was easy and doable and helpful? I would really put in a plug for early steps that get you a result right away. If you go to some sort of treatment and all you get told is, look, this is going to take a long time, it's going to be years and a lot of money, and maybe then you'll feel something, maybe. That can't be the main thing, because you need something to feel better right now. It is so painful having CPTSD. And if you've been in these horrible relationships, it's inevitable that you're going to have hard days where it's going to be so tempting to go back to those guys or get a new one, right? So support for that, very important. If you love this topic of healing and how to start making it wonderful, I want to put some hope in front of your eyes, all right? I have a video, I love this video, and it's about the signs that you're healing. And so many people watch this and go, wow, you know what? I am healing. I've got some of these. So if you want to check it out, that video is right here, and I will see you very soon.